Contrails, chemtrails, geoengineering, climate engineering, weather modification. What's the difference? Climate engineering. Deliberate. The engineering of the climate using various modalities. Weather modification. Deliberate or accidental. The modification of local weather. Geoengineering. Deliberate modification of various Earth systems, not just weather, that are intended to counteract global warming. This caters only to the CO2 narrative and ignores the fact that climate engineering contributes and drives climate change and warming. Contrail cirrus. Allegedly accidental. Cirrus clouds that are made from contrails and allegedly natural. The NOAA and other scientific literature admits they have a weather-modifying effect. Chemtrails. Deliberate contrail cirrus used to manage weather in fronts, conduct geoengineering, and which is capable and proven to hide other nefarious agendas in its trails, such as government bioweapons, Morgellons and other alien nanobots, all kinds of chemicals and synthetics, and other unknown potentials, as countless patents and fallout tests prove are possible and probable. Though everyone, more or less, has heard of chemtrails by now, you may still be called crazy for calling them that. But what if our approach could be refined? What if instead of being in the position of justifying our claims of being sprayed by chemtrails, we turn the tables around on those claiming those are just harmless water vapor, putting them in the position of defending themselves? Just harmless water vapor? Oh, really? First of all, according to the EPA and FAA Contrail fact sheet, contrails are not just water vapor, as they include water vapor, carbon dioxide, CO2, small amounts of nitrogen oxides, hydrocarbons, carbon monoxide, sulfur gases, and soot and metal particles formed by the high-temperature combustion of jet fuel during flight. So they are not just water vapor at all, but the fact sheet continues. The combination of water vapor in aircraft engine exhaust and the low ambient temperatures that often exist at these high altitudes allows the formation of contrails. Contrails are composed primarily of water in the form of ice crystals and do not pose health risks to humans. They do affect the cloudiness of the Earth's atmosphere, however, and therefore might affect atmospheric temperatures and climate. The basic process of contrail formation described in this fact sheet apply to both civil and military aircraft. Persistent contrails are of interest to scientists because they increase the cloudiness of the atmosphere. The increase happens in two ways. First, persistent contrails are line-shaped clouds that would not have formed in the atmosphere without the passage of an aircraft. Secondly, persistent contrails often evolve and spread into extensive cirrus cloud cover that is indistinguishable from naturally occurring cloudiness. At present, it is unknown how much of this more extensive cloudiness would have occurred without the passage of an aircraft. Not enough is known about how natural clouds form in the atmosphere to answer that question." Unquote. So essentially they're saying, they're not chemtrails, they're contrails, and they don't matter, though they might alter the climate, but not enough is known to prove that at this time, and done in the very same paper that claims contrails are not chemtrails. If limited liability is the game, plausible deniability is how it is played. What about the carbon dioxide, CO2, small amounts of nitrogen oxides, hydrocarbons, carbon monoxide, sulfur gases, and soot and metal particles they reported on? Small amounts is surely a relative term when you multiply the amount by the myriad of overt and covert flights that go on day in and day out, year in after year out. This is how the plausible deniability game is played, with weaponized language games. But what if I said it doesn't matter whether we can prove a contrail is deliberate chemtrail or not? And not just because all contrails are chemtrails. They're not forming on pixie dust, are they? But because quite simply contrails matter. That water vapor is the most prominent greenhouse gas on the planet is $1 billion secret. Google IPCC and greenhouse gases and watch what comes up on your image search. Loads of graphs showing CO2 as the largest slice of the greenhouse gas pie pops up, with methane and a not too close second. But none of these graphs show water vapor on there. Yet if you alter your search criteria by simply adding water vapor to the search bar containing greenhouse gas and IPCC, all of a sudden, the charts emerge showing that water vapor and not CO2 is the most prominent greenhouse gas. A greenhouse gas like carbon dioxide, it represents around 80% of the total greenhouse gas mass in the atmosphere and 90% of greenhouse gas volume. Water vapor and clouds account for 66 to 85% of the greenhouse effect, compared to a range of 9 to 26% for CO2. Click on the Yale link in it, and you'll be redirected to a page that will try to reassure you that water vapor is nothing to worry about, as it's part of the CO2 feedback loop and may have a cooling effect. Speaking out both sides of their mouth, they also admit that it can have a warming effect at times as well. Furthermore, warmer temperatures tend to, but do not always, increase evaporation rates, leading to a higher concentration of atmospheric water vapor. This feedback acts in a number of different and at times contradictory ways. The Yale article continues, while uncertainties in the magnitude of water vapor feedbacks are one of the key areas concerning climate change, none of this research casts any doubt on the role of carbon dioxide and other anthropogenic greenhouse gases as the initial forcings behind our current climate perturbation. Despite admitting to the uncertainty and knowing the full effect of water vapor to the checks and balances of the global warming climate change scenario, they confidently blow it off as a secondary to the CO2 problem. Perhaps this is all fine and dandy if you're just dealing with water vapor from natural hydrological sources. But when you're dealing with condensed water vapor in the form of anthropogenic, man-made clouds coming out of various industries, then you are leaving out a whole other realm of water vapor from your model. And this is the point that needs to be highlighted. Because according to NASA, even small changes in the abundance or location of clouds could change the climate more than the anticipated changes caused by other greenhouse gases, human-produced aerosols, or other factors associated with global change. NASA, in their Importance of Understanding Clouds document. Albedo modification, the science of using various reflective surfaces of the Earth to change the heat exchange and radiative effect of them, plays a huge part in climate and is the single most prominent factor that could influence change in climate with only small amounts of change in abundance or location. The rest of the official literature acknowledges this fact, while at the same time refusing to own it. Plausible deniability certainly is convenient. Contrails matter, and focusing on the contrail pollution and albedo modification problem that they cause will help us get past the tinfoil hat labels and fancy language traps that keep us from advancing the conversation with our friends. Also, cloud-aerosol interactions are very significant, part of the climate and environmental problems we collectively face. Airplane contrails cause geoengineering, but because the linguistic game states that geoengineering has to be deliberate to be geoengineering, it is alleged not to count. That is a fallacy, not just because aerosols are bad, but because water vapor, not CO2, is the most prominent greenhouse gas on Earth. This billion-dollar secret is hiding in plain sight. Once we realize the significance of this, paying attention to weather effects, deliberate or accidental, that affect the balance of water and water vapor, such as synchronized power plant releases feeding local thousand-year floods, or the effects of high frequency and microwave facilities like HAARP, Doppler radar, or other cellular arrays, will become essential in understanding daily global and local weather and climate. But just because contrails matter, even if they were to be accidental, doesn't mean they are accidental. There are all manners of hiding the trails and working them into the plausible deniability scenario, and though we currently have no way of knowing which agenda hides behind which lines, evidence, patents, and testimonies abound that attest to an actual spray program. So, you can call them chemtrails, or persistent contrails if you'd rather. But one thing we know, geoengineering to fight global warming is an oxymoron. Because spraying chemicals to fight global warming when spraying chemicals is what helped cause global warming is not the solution. Don't let industry provide the quote-unquote fix. Don't let industry hijack the true sustainability narrative that needs to be had. Don't let them fix the problems that they created with more of the same problem that created it. Look past the lies and the lines in the skies and see how it all comes together. And don't let the geoengineering agenda be justified through an incomplete and highly lacking climate changed narrative.